So I've mentioned course careers in a few of my other videos, so I thought I'd give you guys a high-level view of what it's all about. It's ultimately what helped me make the transition from retail into a tech sales professional. CourseCareers is a boot camp, and there's typically three main routes people take when furthering their education. Number one being college, and the average tuition for a 4-year degree is about $154,000. Number two would be trade schools, and they're typically about $15,000 for the whole program. They can last anywhere from a few months up to about 2 years. And then we've got boot camps, and as you're about to learn, they could range from $500 up to $20,000. They could take a few weeks up to possibly a year or two. Each option has their own pros and cons. I personally think that the connections and networking that you make when you go to college or university is vital. I think it's awesome, but that high tuition doesn't make it appealing to everyone. A lot of the time when I go out on the town, me and my buddies end up meeting groups of people, and they're typically old college roommates or friends, and they're just getting together to catch up. So that networking piece is amazing, but that's a discussion for another time. With trade schools, they're usually in a classroom setting like college or university, but they cut out all the extracurricular activities and they're focused mainly on what you're there to learn, the job you'll be doing. So for instance, if you're going for engineering, well, that's all you're going to be learning about until you graduate, and then at the end, you're going to get a certificate that says you completed the course and you're qualified to do the work. And then you've got your boot camps. That's what I opted for. Being that I was a full-time manager, I was not able to schedule time to actually go to a classroom setting every week to learn, and I thought boot camps would be the best way because typically they're online and you can go at your own pace, which is exactly what I did with CourseCareers. Unfortunately though, the networking aspect is not the same. You don't get that same person-to-person connection that you would if you were in a classroom. They do have Discord groups, but I still wouldn't say it's the same as that in-person experience. But you know, if you're working a full-time job, the cool thing about CourseCareers is you can go as fast or as slow as you want to go. You can finish it within a few days, a few weeks, or a few months. I personally did it in 3 months. You know, I took time out during the beginning of the day and then after work to really focus on learning the material. I could also do it from my iPhone, my iPad, my computer. Oftentimes I would just go to a local coffee shop, pop on some headphones, and then just zone out and study. And so how CourseCareers works is exactly what I'm going to be taking you guys through today. CourseCareers breaks their training down into 5 sections. Number 1 is going to be sales basics. Number 2 is going to be sales skills. Number 3 is going to be sales tools. Number 4 is going to be sales process. And number 5 is going to be interview prep. And then at the very end, there's the final exam. So in sales basics, they dive deep into some really great topics. First up being having a really strong LinkedIn profile, which I think is vital. They show you from start to finish how your profile should look and the importance of building up your connections. I find myself on LinkedIn every day, not just for my job, but often just browsing, because it's the #1 place where professionals communicate. It's kind of like Facebook for business people. Then they dive into important topics such as understanding what ideal customer profile is, buyer personas, and sales terminology, which is super important. In sales, we use a lot of acronyms. So you could have CEO, CFO, CIO, SAS, there's a ton. But if you're able to understand these acronyms and use them during the interview process, it's going to help you go a long way because it's going to show you really know what you're talking about, especially if you're transitioning into tech from another field like retail. But then they dive even deeper and they teach you about how a typical sales cycle works, as well as sales cadence. Sales cycle is also a really great thing to speak to when you're in the interview process. And then they dive into the importance of people skills. As I mentioned to you guys before, they're pretty vital, especially when you're in a customer-facing role. They have some reading requirements for CourseCareers, and so one of them is reading this excellent book called How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. My mom had me read this book when I was about 12, and it's really useful, not even just for business, but for life in general. It really goes into the psychology of how people think and how they relate to others. So if you can read this while you're young or get your kids to read it early, I highly recommend it. And then to make sure that you're retaining all the knowledge, there's mini quizzes at the end of each section. And then next, they dive into sales skills. They teach you the importance of understanding how your job as a sales development representative is measured through meeting your quota. Typically, the task of an SDR, sales development representative, is to make a certain amount of calls per day. Usually it's a high number, about 100 to 200 calls to different businesses, and your goal is to bring someone that's a decision maker to the table for a meeting. Once you set that meeting, your job is done, and then it's passed on to the account executive and the sales engineer. And CourseCareers is cool because then they teach you also how to really set those meetings. They teach you all about cold calling, cold emailing, and using social media like LinkedIn to connect to people. And then they also teach you about keeping your pipeline full. And so pipeline means having a lead list that you can draw from on a daily basis. So that way you can set your next meeting. And if you're doing great and you're booking meetings and you complete your list, awesome. But you gotta make sure it stays full, because if it dries up, well, you don't have any more opportunities. Most companies, I've learned, supply these lists to you from companies that they've already vetted, and your job is just simply to reach out and make that meeting happen. However, some companies require that you go and you do all the sourcing yourself. Honestly, I think it's an important skill to have. If you're able to leverage the fact that you can find new prospects during the interview process, your interviewer is going to be so impressed. Then at the end of this section, they have you read a book called Fanatical Prospecting by Jeb Blount. I think I'm saying that right. It's really a great book, and I really enjoyed his storytelling ability. He typically gives you an example of things that's worked for him, and then a success strategy that you can apply yourself. I'll probably do a review of the book sometime. And then CourseCareers dives into sales tools, which is awesome. They give you a super high level look at what it takes to do proper email best practices, blocking off your calendar, and then also using tools like Zoom to set meetings. And then they also teach you about, ready for another acronym? CRMs. CRMs are customer relationship management tools, the most popular ones being Salesforce and HubSpot. These are the tools that you use to keep all of your important data about communicating with the client as you work on setting all of these meetings. Then they dive into sales engagement and sales data tools. My favorite one personally is Apollo. It's able to connect directly to LinkedIn, and if you need to pull someone's cell phone number, email address, it's all just right there instantly. It's great. And then next up is the very important topic of the sales process. They teach you all about running discovery on a prospect, qualifying them through the BANT process, working on your ideal customer profile, and then spin selling. Spin selling is the last book that they have you read inside of the course. I wasn't really a big fan of this book, but luckily it's super thin, so it wasn't too bad. The good thing is it teaches you really great strategies such as BANT, which stands for budget, authority, need, and timing. But I wasn't really fond of how this book is written, because basically throughout the book, they give a bunch of examples of things that didn't work. And I kind of get it. They're trying to qualify why these type of processes don't work. And here's what you should do that will work. But I'm more of a get to the point kind of guy. And I felt like it kind of dragged on with all the examples of things that failed versus getting to the solution quick enough. If I had this book on audio, I probably would have skipped through a lot of it to get to the solution faster. But hey, it did teach me about BANT, so I'm thankful for that. I definitely recommend you take your time and really understand these concepts, because once you get into the real job, you're going to be applying these strategies in your daily work as you qualify leads. And then lastly, they dive into interview prep. And I've already given you guys quite a few videos on tactics that have always worked for me. But in this course, they also give you the standard resume that stands out to employers when you're applying for tech sales. So that's kind of cool. They show you the format that they would utilize. I personally don't utilize that format because I have a lot of career history. I have multiple pages where they say to just try to keep it simple, keep everything on one page. Sometimes I agree with that, sometimes I don't. I think if you have a long-standing career and you're with a company for a long time, you should highlight all the awesome things you did while you were there. They also do a mock interview on screen with the president, or I guess you would say the owner of CourseCareers, and he shows you strategies that's worked for other students that's gotten these awesome jobs as well. And then there's the final proctored exam, and so you're required to be on camera the whole time. So no cheating. They test you on how to write a cold email, what you learned from each one of the books you read, as well as your overall understanding of the sales cycle and all the acronyms. And then the last thing they give you is called the Graduate Portal. It's a nice little area where companies can search for you. And basically, you put up a profile, you tell them the type of work environment you want, you tell them if you want to work remotely, hybrid, in person, and you tell them the salary range that you are hoping to make. I personally didn't have any success with the Graduate Portal. Recruiters mainly reached out to me because of my resume being on LinkedIn and Indeed. And as I mentioned in this video, you want to make sure you're able to skip the application process as much as you can and talk to a real person. Because with the ATS, the automated tracking system, a lot of times, especially if you don't have prior experience, you're just going to get an automatic rejection letter. So I really encourage you to find out who the recruiter is, who the hiring manager is, who the vice president of sales is, and reach out. Honestly, when I was taking this approach and I would at least talk to a real person, I typically got to at least the first interview and it would get my foot in the door. So that pretty much sums up tech sales for CourseCareers, but your education shouldn't stop there. Every day, I'm continuously growing my mind and learning new things so that I can really perfect this opportunity. A few additional books that I've found crucial to the success I've been having is going to be Influence by Robert Cialdini. It's a fantastic book that really gets into the psychology of selling yourself as well as the products. And then also Creating Superfans by Brittany Hodak. And basically this book is all about branding, all about who you are, sharing your story, and connecting with your customers. And another great way to continue your learning is to check out my boy Trent Dressel. He's actually the one that came up with and delivers the entire CourseCareers bootcamp that you would end up going through. And on his channel, he drops gems every day about how he went from making $50,000 a year to $300,000 a year at the age of 26 when he got promoted to an account executive. And that's one of the things I really love about CourseCareers is they really show you the path that this career can have. You know, you start off as a sales development representative, then you move up to account executive, then you can move up to sales manager, and there's just so much growth that can occur. It's awesome. If you're interested in CourseCareers, they offer a lot more than just tech sales, but investing $500 into a new career, which could end up earning you six figures, is totally worth it. If you've got a solid attention to detail, excellent customer service skills, and aren't afraid to pick up the phone and communicate, it just might be the job for you. And if you need more convincing, check out these shows with my boy Cyrus at Tech is the New Black, as well as these episodes I've linked below for the Anthony O'Neill Show. They really dive into how these careers can change your life. For more info on exactly what tech sales is, check out this one. And if you found value in today's video, like and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.